My name's Olivia. I'm 27 years old. I live in a big city, and I work in media. Outside of work, there's one place I go almost every day, an upscale gym in the heart of the city. It's clean, spacious, modern. The air always smells like peppermint essential oil. The lights are soft. The music, mellow lo-fi beats, a quiet escape from the chaos outside. I stick to the same routine, same time, same machines. So the faces around me became familiar, and among them was Daniel. Daniel looked to be in his early 30s, tall, lean, always smiling. He greeted everyone, joked with the staff, offered tips to strangers. After every set, he'd pull out a sanitizing wipe, clean his hands, fold it carefully, and toss it in the bin. We weren't friends, but he always said hi. Once he helped me with my form while squatting. He grinned. Straighten that back, or you'll regret it tomorrow. He had that energy, the kind that made a space feel lighter. Last week, after a short work trip, I returned to the gym. Daniel wasn't there. I figured he was just taking a few days off, but as days passed, he never showed up. So I asked the front desk, "Hey, has Daniel been around lately?" The receptionist paused, then looked down and said softly, "You didn't hear? He had a motorcycle accident last week, right after leaving the gym." My stomach dropped. I didn't know him well, but the silence he left behind was loud. I didn't respond, just nodded, walked over to his usual machine, the lap pulled down, sat down, started my routine, set 1, normal, set 2. A sneeze, software quick, behind me. I turned. No one. The gym was half empty, machines idle, quiet. I shook it off, kept going. A few days later, while on the elliptical, I heard a familiar sound. A soft hum, like a machine powering on. I turned my head. Daniel's machine, just barely, was moving. No one near it, no reason for it to shift. I stepped down, walked closer. By the time I got there, it had stopped. The air was colder, still, heavy, and then that scent, faint, sharp. The same disinfectant wipes Daniel always used. I didn't say anything, didn't ask anyone. I just walked away. A week passed, then a month. When I returned, everything looked the same. Lights, music, that faint smell of mint in the air. But something felt different. While walking past the free weights, I felt it. A presence, not loud, not scary. Just there. Like someone had brushed past my arm, a breath at my neck, and that familiar smell again. His cologne. I froze. No one around. But I knew. He was still here. Not haunting, not trapped, just saying hi. Like he always did, before every workout. My name is Nate. I'm 32 years old and work freelance in advertising. I travel often, and renting Airbnbs has become a monthly routine. Last month, I had a week-long business trip to a small town about a 3-hour drive from the city. There weren't any suitable hotels, so I booked a small bungalow-style house on Airbnb. 1 bedroom, a kitchen, a private bathroom. Just enough space to work and rest. The host was a woman named Grace. Very polite, always quick to reply. When I first arrived, everything seemed fine. The house was clean, the air smelled lightly of beeswax, and there were fresh flowers in the living room. A few canvas prints of nature scenes hung on the walls. Pine forests, lakes, sunsets. The only thing that bothered me a little was the bedside lamp. It wasn't broken, just off. It always leaned slightly to one side, like someone had tried to straighten it but left it crooked. On the first night, I adjusted it, carefully, placed it squarely in the center of the nightstand, perpendicular to the edge of the bed. I'm a tidy person, and small things like that can really throw me off. But the next morning, it was tilted again. Just a little. But tilted. No one had been in the room. I was sure I'd locked the door, and of course I hadn't touched it after adjusting it. I chuckled it off. Maybe it was the breeze, even though I remembered closing the window. I fixed it again. The second night, the lamp was tilted again. Now I was genuinely annoyed, not scared, just irritated that I couldn't explain it. I even took a photo after adjusting it so I could compare the next morning. Next morning, tilted again. And even stranger, the photo still showed it perfectly straight. But in real life, it was off-center. I started getting really frustrated, not like someone was pranking me, more like I was being quietly mocked, like there was a joke being played and I wasn't in on it. Every time I saw that lamp just slightly off, my heart beat a little faster, not out of fear, but because I hated not being in control. On the third night, I decided to try something. I set up my phone to record a time-lapse overnight, mounted it firmly to the headboard, aimed directly at the lamp. I even plugged in the charger and put the phone on silent, like preparing for a science experiment. The room was strangely quiet at night. No traffic, no dogs, not even insects. Just the steady hum of the AC and my own heartbeat, getting louder the later it got. I barely slept. Next morning, first thing I did was check the footage. The video ran for 6 hours. I scrubbed through 0000. The lamp was still, soft light from the window casting shadows on the pale gray floor. 2:43, one frame glitched. I paused, went back, slowed it down. One corrupted frame. The lamp still in place. Next frame, the lamp was crooked. I frowned. No movement, no figure, no vibration, just a cut. It felt like someone had rewound and deleted part of the footage. I inhaled deeply. The early morning air still carried the faint beeswax scent from the living room, mixed with fresh coffee I'd set to brew. But the pleasant smell didn't cover the chill crawling up my neck. For the first time, I felt like something was wrong. And the worst part? It all started from something so ordinary. A wooden lamp, cylindrical, with a branch pattern etched into the surface. A warm yellow bulb, and a neatly coiled cord. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't message the host. I just went on with my work. But that night, I tried something different. I unplugged the lamp, removed the bulb, laid it flat on the nightstand, perfectly aligned with the bed's edge. No way it could tilt again. Turned off the ceiling light, got into bed. The air was cool, quiet. Through the window, I could see the soft glow of a streetlight outside, casting long tree shadows. A distant owl hooted once, then silence. I fell asleep. I woke up at 3:12 a.m., not because of a sound, but because of light. A soft glow touched my face from the right side. I opened my eyes. The lamp was upright. Literature standing perfectly straight, the yellow bulb glowing steadily. I didn't scream. I didn't leap up. I just lay there, my heart pounding, eyes wide. I remembered clearly. I had removed the bulb, unplugged it, laid it down. But now it was upright, and on. I turned my head slowly. The cord, plugged in. The bulb, intact. I don't know how long I stayed frozen. Could have been minutes. Could have been hours. But I remember the details. The cold fabric of the sheets, the dry taste in my mouth, the soft click of the lamp's switch, like it had just been turned. I didn't get up. I just pulled the covers over my head and squeezed my eyes shut. I kept telling myself it was just a prank. A prank. That's all it was. Next morning, I woke with a numbness in my wrist, maybe from clutching the blanket too tightly. Outside was steel gray, sunlight barely penetrating the heavy clouds. I sat up and looked at the table. The lamp, still on, not flickering, not malfunctioning. Steady light, warm and gentle, as if nothing had happened. I reached over and turned it off. The switch made a crisp click. The bulb was warm, too warm to have been off all night. There was no way I'd sleepwalked. I don't sleepwalk. I've lived alone for 4 years. I'd know if I'd done anything strange. I walked into the kitchen. Everything was in order. Checkered tablecloth, the stainless steel kettle on the stove, spice jars lined up neatly. I brewed peppermint tea, the only thing that could calm me down. The steam rose gently, warming my nose, the sharp minty smell grounding me. But as I turned to head back to the bedroom, I heard a soft click from the living room. I walked over. No one there. Windows locked, curtains still drawn. The light grey sofa sat untouched. The small glass coffee table looked the same, except the TV remote was flipped. I was sure it had been lying flat. Now it was angled, turned inward. My heartbeat kicked up again. This didn't feel like a joke anymore. This felt wrong. That night, I moved a single chair from the living room into the bedroom, placed it right next to the lamp. I set my phone on it. This time, recording with night vision and the microphone on. I unplugged the lamp, removed the bulb, stored it in the vanity drawer, more than 6 feet away. The ceiling light stayed on. I went to bed. The clean sheets carried the same scent, a mix of detergent and lingering mint. It felt falsely calm. I couldn't sleep. My ears strained to catch every sound. The night dragged on. At 2:56 a.m., I woke again to a soft sound, like fabric sliding. I sat up. The lamp was off, but moonlight through the window lit enough for me to see the chair. Empty. My phone, on the floor, face down. I grabbed it, opened it. The video recording was off. The last file was only 11 minutes long. I looked around and saw a shadow on the wall. The lamp's shadow next to mine, even though the lamp had no bulb, even though it was unplugged. I started to shake. The smell in the room had changed. No more tea, no more mint. Instead, a faint burnt odor, like scorched wiring. I stepped back. My foot touched something damp. I looked down. A piece of tissue, the kind I used to wipe my desk. Wet. Sticky. With a blackened scorch mark in the center. Smelled like alcohol that had caught fire. I flipped on the ceiling light. The room lit up, and the lamp was upright on the table. No cord, no bulb, but glowing. I stood frozen. The glow wasn't electric. It was dim. Pale green. Almost like phosphorescent fog. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just sat on the floor and breathed. The next morning, the lamp was back to normal. No light, no scorch, no shadow, no burnt tissue. Everything as if nothing happened. I told no one. I did only one thing. Packed up the lamp, drove 3 blocks to a metal waste bin, and threw it in. I didn't look back. Didn't want to look back. That night, I heard a soft, steady sound. I got up, phone in hand, and stepped out quietly. No lights, only the pale glow of the street lamp filtering through the curtain. Everything looked the same. Chair, bookshelf, couch. Then my eyes stopped at the cabinet by the front wall, where I kept random junk. I walked closer. The cabinet door was slightly open. I reached out and pulled. Inside was something sitting quietly. A lamp. The same lamp. I had thrown it away. I saw the garbage truck take it. It couldn't be. I stepped back, my heart pounding, cold sweat down my back. The glow began to flicker, not like a dying bulb, like it was blinking. I panicked and shouted. And then I woke up, in bed. It was just a dream. Or maybe the memory had bled into my sleep. I don't dwell on it anymore. But even now, whenever I stay at a hotel or a friend's place, I always find myself looking at the bedside lamp. Not with fear, just out of habit. A new habit. The figure on the balcony. My name is Jason. I'm 31 years old. My mother still lives alone in our family's old house in Vermont. A 2-story oak wood home, painted white with dark grey shingles, tucked deep among the maple trees behind the town of Middlebury. That house held most of my childhood. But the older I got, the more I realized my mother never loved it. I only learned the reason 3 months ago when I visited her on a misty, drizzling afternoon. She stood by the kitchen window, a warm cup of tea in her hands, staring out into the damp backyard. Then suddenly, she said something that made my chest tighten. "Do you remember the back balcony, just behind the living room?" I nodded. It was a small, wooden balcony. Faded grey oak, with a low railing, always soaked in the smell of cold wind and sap. I used to sit out there on autumn mornings, eating peanut butter toast with cold milk. She gently set her cup on the wooden table, her gaze still fixed through the window. Then she said slowly, "That's where I saw someone, but not anyone from our family." I let out a soft chuckle, thinking she was joking, but her eyes didn't have the look of someone sharing a light-hearted memory. She told me that when I was about 5 years old, my father had just passed, and she was left to raise me alone in that big, empty house. She was only in her early 30s then. Still young, but already exhausted from doing everything on her own. I don't remember much from that time, but she remembers, clearly. One night around 2 a.m, she suddenly woke up to a soft creaking sound, the specific creak of wooden boards, from the balcony. She didn't sit up, just turned to her side, looking toward the slightly ajar glass door. Outside, someone was standing there, a shadowed figure, still, unmoving. There were no lights on, but the moonlight filtering through the trees was enough for her to see him clearly, tall, thin, wearing a dark coat, not facing the house, not walking away, just standing, turned toward the forest, as if waiting for something to come out of the woods. She didn't go near. She lay frozen, her heart pounding, sweat forming even though the air was cold. The moisture from the wooden walls and floor seemed to seep into her skin, holding her in place. She didn't call the police, didn't scream. The next morning, once the sun was up, she stepped out onto the balcony. There was no one, no footprints, no broken branches, but on the wooden railing was a handprint, a faint single handprint, as if someone had been resting their hand there for a very long time. From that day on, she always kept the bedroom door locked at night, always closed the curtains, and never, ever stepped back out onto that balcony. By this point, my skin was crawling, but I still tried to reassure her. Maybe it was a lost hiker or someone from the area. She shook her head slowly. If it was just a person, why didn't they come back? Knock on the door? Look inside. I didn't have an answer. Then she continued. That wasn't the only time she saw him. The second time happened just a week later, again in the middle of the night. This time, she didn't see his whole body, just a hand, pressed against the glass. At this point, my heart began to race. My mother paused for a long moment, as if deciding whether or not to go on. I stayed quiet, fingers wrapped around my tea mug, feeling its warmth through the ceramic, but still cold inside. She looked at me with an expression that was both serious and strangely distant. The last time I saw him, she said, was after you'd already moved out. About 3 years ago. That night, she said, was in early September. It was lightly raining, just enough to make the leaves glisten. She was reading in her armchair in the living room when she heard a soft tapping on the back door. The sound of fingers, not pounding, just rhythmic taps. That door has 2 layers, a wooden door on the outside and a glass sliding door on the inside. Both had been shut. She placed her book down and got up, thinking it was probably just a tree branch brushing the frame. But as she got closer, she froze. The same hand was pressed against the glass, long fingers, pale skin, no visible fingerprints, not moving, just resting there, as if someone was trying to reach into the warmth of the room. She stood there. This time she told me she wasn't afraid like before. What she felt was something colder, like an emptiness spreading through her chest. She didn't scream, didn't run. She simply pulled the curtain shut. I didn't open the door, she said, didn't look again. But I knew it stayed there for a while. I asked, what happened after that? She shook her head. I haven't seen it since. But every year, during the rainy season, I dream of a hand tapping on the glass. I asked her if she ever saw a doctor about it. If maybe it was stress or insomnia. She smiled faintly. Maybe, but whether it was real or not, the feeling remains the same. That sense of being watched, being waited for, being called in silence. It doesn't go away just because someone says it's in your head. I didn't know what else to say. We sat in silence for a long while. Only the soft rain tapping on the roof remained, and the scent of ginger tea spreading slowly from her cup, which she hadn't finished. I'm telling this story because 2 nights later, back in my apartment in New York, I heard it too. The soft tapping. On the balcony door, the balcony on the 12th floor. No access, no ledge, no way anyone could be out there. I walked toward it, heart thudding in my chest. Nothing. No prints, no fog, no shadows, just a white curtain, swaying gently as if stirred by a breeze, though all the windows were shut tight. I pulled the curtain closed. I didn't tell my mother. Didn't tell anyone. But there's one small habit I've never shaken since that night. I never sleep with my balcony curtains open. And every year, when the rains return, I hear her voice in my head asking, "Do you remember the balcony behind the living room?